And here's my update based on the numbers. Jack is in a position to win. I'm not saying he's going to win, right? Republicans have to turn out. We're competing a little bit better on vote by mail. We're competing a little bit better on the early vote. But that still means we'd have to dominate turnout on election day. So to anybody out there that's confident about this New Jersey race, you shouldn't be. You should be excited about it, because I do think he's in a much better position than he was at this time 4 years ago. But Republicans have to vote. Democrats are always motivated. They're always showing up. It doesn't matter who the candidate is.
But for the rest of yous, let's jump back to this story here. Trump rules out running as Vance's VP to gain third term, but open to Bannon plan. Let AOC go against Trump. No joke. Donald Trump is actually entertaining him having a third term as president. Is it going to play?
Millions of people. That's what's important. Yeah.
Who are the very good people?
They are good people.
You said that for 2028, there are very good people. Who do you have in mind?
Oh, we have great people. I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against those. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that. I would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers.
So you're not ruling out the third term?
Am I not ruling it out? You'll have to tell me. All I can tell you is that we have a great group of people, which they don't. They have Jasmine Crockett, a low IQ person. They have AOC's low IQ. If you give her an IQ test, have her pass like the exams that I decided to take when I was at Walter Reed. Those are very hard, they're really aptitude tests.
The aptitude tests they do aren't super hard. I am actually impressed, though, because one of them is like at the beginning of the test, they tell you to remember 5 words, and at the end of the test, ask you to cite them back. And I have a really great memory, but I know a lot of people that can't remember why they walked in a room, let alone remembering 5 words. I love it. Trump versus AOC. Now, let's be real, guys. Many people have come out and said, Trump's joking. He's not going to go for a third term. Don't be ridiculous. I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that. It's possible. Very much so. We have a bunch of elections happening right now. It is imperative that conservatives win because in Virginia, for instance, the AG has publicly been exposed. He's been exposed publicly as he wants to murder conservatives and their children. He wasn't joking. All of it's confirmed. And he wants to have the full law enforcement powers in Virginia, which is absolutely terrifying. Well, we're going to be joined by Cliff Maloney in just a second as I boot up our interview page. Let's see, make sure this is working properly. It looks like everything is working properly. Loading it up. And Cliff, how's it going, man?
It's great. Thanks for having me today, Tim.
So we got some big elections that are happening right now, and there's big concerns about whether or not the right is going to win in Virginia, in New Jersey. We also have the Proposition Prop 50 to redistrict in California. Trump has talked about, the DOJ is sending election monitors to these locations. I want to get into that, but the first thing I want to ask you is just to get the spicy bit up front. Trump hasn't ruled out running or somehow getting a third term. And he was just interviewed. He's on Air Force One, and he says, let's go up against AOC. She's low IQ. There's rumors of a plot where Trump would run as Vance's VP, and then once Vance wins, he resigns or something, and then Trump becomes president again. How much of this do you think is Trump trolling? Do you think that really is? Bannon seems dead serious. Do you think this is really in play?
I think Trump's trolling, if I had to guess. I mean, I think it's a fun time for everybody. It's a good thought exercise. And of course, the troll works, right? Because the left goes nuts. You know, it plays into all these fake dictator, Hitler-type comments and all this crazy stuff. And they eat out of the palm of his hand. So, yeah, I think he's going to continue to do that. But no, if I had to guess, I would say Trump does not run for a third term or any type of, VP, slide him in, this or that. I think it's just having some fun.
Bannon seems pretty serious, but again, Bannon's not Trump and he's not working with Trump. But what I do find interesting is there is a potential PR strategy here that Trump keeps poking the bear because the media will take it. The media keeps hearing Trump is a tyrant who wants a third term, and then Trump resigns peacefully and waves and smiles to everybody. And, the PR play is make the media cry wolf as much as you can so that no one trusts them anymore.
Yeah, and I think what he's doing is genius because they're going to continuously be focused on that. Look, if somebody makes up something about you and it's not true, this idea that you're a dictator, and then you can go and continuously make jokes and normal people know that you're joking, and the left just because it's, look, I told you, look, he's doing this. I just think it's a hilarious troll, and I think they're going to continue to push it.
I think, considering what we've seen so far, I would entertain the possibility. So when Bannon brought this up, he said there's a plan. At the appropriate time, he'll announce it. The 22nd Amendment says you can't be elected more than twice. And I think for most people, like obviously you're saying it's probably trolling. Most people probably assume he's just goofing off and he's poking the bear. But there is a possibility of appointment, which bypasses any argument on the Second Amendment. It says elected. What if Trump is appointed? What if, with what we've seen, so now we're transitioning into these election monitors and what I want to talk to you about. We're seeing the DOJ is sending election monitors out. They want to make sure there's no funny business. This is actually fairly common for the DOJ to do, but the Democrats are losing their minds over it. Newsom said Trump is rigging the election. What happens, before we get into all of that stuff, just segueing through, what happens if come 2028, just before the election, something happens discernibly, be it clear evidence of some kind of rigging or even terror attacks, which calls the results into question, and there is no definitive winner between the Democrat and the Republican, and it's not because of any kind of tie or any kind of numerical outcome, but because no one can be certain the results are correct after something happening at polling locations disrupts the process. What if the Supreme Court then appoints Trump?
Well, one, I don't want us to ever be Zelensky or Ukraine and cancel elections. I think you got to move forward, even in the midst of tragedies, wars. You got to elect the leaders that are serving the people. Two, I think the DOJ, what you just said, Tim, is 100% correct, right? The left will take this as some hysteric moment of overstep by the federal government. We've been doing this for decades. The DOJ has sent people to these polling locations to monitor them for decades. And even just in 2024, they passed the COCO Act, which pretty much enhanced what the DOJ does to say that congressional staffers can go in and they can watch and secure the election. So look, we have a legal process. The legal process is going to handle some of these things. There's a lot of unprecedented things that could happen, and a lot of it's kind of blurry and unclear, but we still have a country. We still have a republic. We still have different separations of power. And I think the judicial system, we got to make sure people can trust the election, but that's going to be who will decide whether these electors are certified, whether each state is happening. But it's messy. I'll give you that.
That's why I think it's funny when we hear Democrats say things like, there won't be an election. I think Rosie O'Donnell was, I don't know if it was her, but they say things like that. And it's funny because I can't remember who said this. Might have been Michael Malice. Like, even North Korea has elections. Like, whether you can trust them is a different story. So what's going on right now? What are you working on?
Yeah, so we're in New Jersey right now. I went on your show last year to talk about our Pennsylvania work with the Pennsylvania Chase program. We've launched the New Jersey Chase program. And the idea is we're all in on Jack Ciattarelli for governor. We've got 105 people on the ground full time. And here's my update based on the numbers. Jack is in a position to win. I'm not saying he's going to win, right? Republicans have to turn out. We're competing a little bit better on vote by mail. We're competing a little bit better on the early vote. But that still means we'd have to dominate turnout on election day. So to anybody out there that's confident about this New Jersey race, you shouldn't be. You should be excited about it because I do think he's in a much better position than he was at this time 4 years ago. But Republicans have to vote. Democrats are always motivated. They're always showing up. It doesn't matter who the candidate is. So we're seeing good numbers so far. And Tim, this is the first time Republicans have really competed in New Jersey.
Wow.
Right? That's not a shot at the New Jersey Republican Party. I just think nationally, this has become the race. So you have folks that are coming into New Jersey. You have different infrastructure and apparatus that other swing states are used to. So we're going to see just how much impact that has. Luckily, the Democrat is a horrific candidate, and the Republican is like, you look at Jack and you're like, this guy looks like a governor, right? He connects with normal people, and I think it'll be an interesting referendum to see if he pulls it off.
What was Chris Christie? He was a Republican, wasn't he?
Yeah, New Jersey has never elected the same party's governor more than 2 terms in a row. It's very weird. So this will be historic if the Democrats win. There's always been kind of a shift. And, way back in the past, it was more of a, hey, the state would go back and forth, mostly between moderate Republicans, to be clear. But yeah, Christie was in office, back when he was running for the 2016 race. He had just been out of office for 2 years after his Bridgegate scandal.
Yeah.
So there is hope in New Jersey. There's rational thought. And remember, Trump lost by double digits in 2020. 2024, he only lost by 5.9 points. So the shift is coming. It's not when, it's if it's going to happen now, because the registration's moving towards Republicans. You've got a lot of the momentum. Jack only lost by 3 points when he lost 4 years ago. So it's moving there. It's just, is there enough time for it to be this election that it goes Republican?
What does this mean for people in New Jersey? Like, what if the Republicans win?
Yeah, look, I think that a lot of the national issues we saw in 2024 are very similar in Jersey, right? If Republican Jack Ciattarelli gets elected, you're talking about lower energy rates. You're talking about ending the wokeness. You're not going to have men in girls' sports. The immigration issue, he's going to be working with President Trump. And honestly, just the whole role of government. New Jersey is out of control. If you compare the tax rates across the board, whether it's individual taxes, corporate taxes, business taxes, it's unsustainable. I mean, Tim, I've had about 10 different of my individual donors who have told me in New Jersey that if Mikey Sherrill wins this election, that they are moving their company to Florida or Tennessee or somewhere else where they can do business. I think people look at New York as being horrific. New Jersey's taxes are off the charts. And I just think people there with the cost of living, the biggest benefit you're going to find is if Republican Jack Ciattarelli gets elected, it'll be a huge boost to working blue-collar New Jerseyans. That's what they're excited about. Yeah,
we dodged a bullet. I was in Jersey for a little while. First in Bergen County, and then we moved down south to the Woodbury area, just outside of Philadelphia, but on the Jersey side. And we were trying to launch all of this stuff that we were doing in Jersey, but it was impossible. And I would argue that we actually dodged a bullet and got lucky. We were looking at buying property, and because it's so difficult to run a business in Jersey, we ended up saying maybe this isn't the right idea. Like, we tried to buy a building. It was a disaster. We were disappointed. And it was a great building. It's a big office, and we were going to do so much amazing stuff. I was reading about New Jersey's youth brain drain. Young people flee the state. It has failed the younger generation. And I was like, how do we turn that around? Come on, we can make New Jersey great again, right? Nope, no, we could not. So unfortunately, maybe if we stuck around, we could have helped. But I decided to get out. And now, of course, we briefly went to West Virginia, and then we ended up in now we're in West. We went to Maryland. Now we're in West Virginia, and it's unfortunate, but the state has just been horribly mismanaged, in my opinion, corrupt. It makes it impossible for you to run a functional business. Why would someone stick around? So I'm hoping, what we saw with Jeff Van Drew switching parties all those years ago, those trends continue, much like, what we saw in my neighborhood in Chicago, despite Chicago being deep blue. My neighborhood, which was blue in 2016, is now red, staunchly for Donald Trump. I'm hoping we'll see some of that in New Jersey, and we can start fixing all of these problems.
Yeah, and look, Tim, the pendulum has to swing back, right? Eventually things get bad enough that normal people, regardless of party, right? Now, this isn't even a partisan thing, but when it becomes so corrupt and when the government is just making things so difficult with red tape, eventually people push back. And look, if you had to look at different places in the United States, forget the policies, just talk about the actual land and opportunities and the seasons. New Jersey is a beautiful place to live.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You've got the beaches. You've got all of these it's so much, it's just ripe for good business. And these politicians have just made it so impossible for young people, for individuals. Like you said, even just trying to start a business, some of these regulations are just out of control.
Yep.
And why would you ever pick a state like that when you have those other opportunities not too far away? And that's the problem they're having, is no one's staying in New Jersey.
Don't get me started on gun laws. Let's talk about gun laws. Let's talk about, if you are let's say you're a moderate and you're like, I don't know, I don't like crazy people having guns. Well, New Jersey is just plumb nuts, okay? It is the craziest place. I had a guy try to break into my house. He was a pedophile, and he was demanding that or hoping I would interview him and tell the world about his story and how he was framed or something. I don't know. It was 3 a.m. and he tries entering my home. I call the police. Fortunately, they're nearby. They come, take the guy, they stop him, they find him. I get one of these cops, he says, if it were me, I'd answer the door with a shotgun. And I said, oh, okay, then what? These cops explained to me, in New Jersey, if someone breaks into your house and screams that they're going to kill you, you are not allowed to shoot them. Only when you are cornered with nowhere to go, if the person is expressing an intent to kill you, Can you use lethal force? And I said, and then what? The cop told me you'd be arrested and charged with a felony for murder. And when you finally make it to trial, you can explain to the judge why you were innocent and try and use self-defense as your claim. But in this state, the victims are penalized and the criminals run rampant. And so, with that combined with the business issues, I said, listen, by all means, you want to have strict gun laws, whatever, fine, but at least allow people to defend themselves, and the state doesn't. It's more than just the governor. You need the state legislature to shift. You need every conservative-minded, every moderate, every reasonable person to go and vote.
Yeah, and I think you just hit on the two major things we're trying to do, which is one, you got to flip the governor's mansion, but then we've got 4 to 5 legislative districts that have to flip to give some control back to what I would call the rational folks. On guns in New Jersey, you're over the target here. It is the most radically run state. The gun grabbers have full control on the policies in the state. Let me explain this to you. Since Charlie's assassination, for all of these public events, especially more high profile, we had an event in Wildwood. Benny Johnson, Jack Posobiec, Scott Pressler, myself, we all had security with us. And when I talked to the security team, this is a group that's not based in Jersey, and I told them the event is in Jersey and we were going to need body men with us. You should have heard the sigh from our team that was like, oh my gosh. Because even in New Jersey, the only carve out to being able to protect and carry a gun with somebody that, is supposed to serve as security is you have to be an ex-policeman. You have to be a retired state trooper. It's like the only carve out.
Or
and so
famous.
Those are the people you can go to. But to me, to think you literally are hiring security and those people, imagine what citizens have rights to. If people that are former law enforcement are the only ones, that's bonkers. New Jersey's got to get this fixed.
Yeah, the ruling in the ruling pertaining to New York where they allow you, like, states now have to issue permits. When I lived in Jersey, the first thing that happened was I was trying to get a gun because we had these threats. I was informed it wouldn't matter anyway. They told me, if you shoot a guy who breaks into your house, you're going to go to jail. You're going to be charged with murder, and you can plead your case to the judge, and maybe you'll get bail. But so I said, what am I supposed to do? And they said, flee. I'm like, flee where? I'm in my home. And what I was told by the cops are like, imagine telling a judge, I'd rather kill a guy than stand outside somewhere. You think they're gonna let you go for that? They're gonna convict you. And it's the craziest thing. First, I go to the police. They all lie to me on how to get a gun. Finally, I figured out, if you want to buy a gun, ask the guys who sell them. They told me what to do, how to fill out the paperwork, and then it was relatively quick. It didn't take that long, but you've got to get like ID'd. You got to go to a police station, and if you want to be able to actually carry the weapon,
forget it.
You have to be famous. I'm not kidding. They told me you have to prove there is a reason you need to carry it, and that means you are a famous individual who is wealthy. That's it. In the state of New Jersey, this is several years ago, like 2018, I think, in order to carry a weapon, concealed, open, or otherwise, you have to prove you are rich and you have to prove you're famous, because just rich ain't enough. No one's going to target you. Just famous, maybe that'll qualify. And that is an insane standard that it's ridiculous. Now, that being said, it's not just New Jersey, though. I know you guys are working up there in New Jersey. But what do you think about what's going on in Virginia? Because let me tell you, we're talking about self-defense and protection. I'm a few minutes away from Virginia. Let me tell you how worried I am and my family, because we drive down the road and we see signs for J. Jones everywhere. And this is a guy who said he wants the children of his political rivals murdered, and he wants conservatives murdered. And he wants to own law enforcement in that state. He didn't lose an endorsement. He barely went down in the polls. If this guy wins, it is a terrifying reality for what's going to happen to anyone conservative-minded.
Yeah, I think this is a huge moment for Virginia to decide, which direction they're going to go. I lived in Virginia for a couple of years, Northern Virginia. I always thought it was a pretty good place to live. Northern Virginia is a little crazy with a lot of their laws. But if this J. Jones guy wins, I think it's just going to send a message that not only has the Democrat Party lost its way in the party leadership, but a lot of the party voters. I've always been a believer that a lot of times it's the radical activists or the radical donors, and that's what kind of the politicians react to. If voters in Virginia decide that a guy who fantasized about killing a political opponent and his kids, if he gets elected, I'm going to have a real trouble I mean, that's going to be difficult for me to understand how you justify it. Like, I get it. You know, you vote along party lines, but it's not like these voters are going to the polls, Tim, and don't know. This is the
Right.
number one story. Every single voter knows about it. If you want to do a split ticket because you can't vote for him, but you're a Democrat, I can at least understand that. But to cast your vote for a guy who says he wants to put a bullet in the children's head of your opponent, that's insane to me. And the fact that we even have to say it, think about how wild that is. 20 years ago, I hope and I think this person will be run from public life. Now, Democrats are figuring out a way to spin it and justify supporting them. Like you said, not one endorsement lost.
What about the Nazi guy in Maine?
He's going up in the polls. He's up in the polls now among Democrats.
You know, it's funny. We're laughing, but it's like a Democrat is exposed to having the literal Totenkopf on his chest, and among Democrats, his polling improves. I wonder what that says about the Democrat voter base and their political inclinations.
Yeah. And this whole idea that they are the party of peace, I think not only did 2024 kind of move the needle on that, but every day we're seeing more and more of this, doubling down on the bad bets. But it's just who the party's becoming. Tim, I really don't know if they're going to be a national party unless they start to pivot away from the crazy stuff. But the radicals have them by the horns right now. They're doubling down on all the woke nonsense. And I'm here for it, right? As somebody trying to elect liberty-minded Republicans, sure. But I'm just waiting. When are they going to pivot back? I don't see it.
This is my joke. It's not really a joke, but, you know, when these Democrats call people on the right Nazis, my response is, I know you don't actually think I'm a Nazi. And when they say, how do you know I don't think that? Because if I was, you'd vote for me. We've seen it in Maine. When they falsely accuse a conservative of being a Nazi, what they're really saying is to the normies, don't vote for him. But I got to be honest. You know, I think it was Crystal Ball, you know, podcaster said, she'd rather vote for the guy with a regrettable tattoo, that's how she described it, than a politician who supported actual genocide. And it's like, well, look, that's fine if you want to accuse Israel of genocide. They're both. Like, both candidates are representing that in your view, if that's what your argument is. But they're voting for it with a smile on their faces because I don't think they ever really opposed it, especially the anti-Israel cohort on the Democratic side. I think that's largely what motivates them, to be honest. And I think this guy in Maine, again, by all means, criticize Israel. But I'm going to say in this particular instance, this guy's very anti-Israel. He probably hates Jews. And he's got a Totenkopf on his chest for 18 years. That's not an accident. You don't accidentally get that. I don't believe it for a second. And I think a lot of these Democrats are probably thinking, yeah, okay, well, we hate Israel too. And so they're going to vote for him for that reason.
Well, and I think in the past, you know, people would want to distance themselves from radical lunatics like this. But now they look at the idea of, well, the Supreme Court is that important. Yeah. Right. Passing legislation in the U.S. Senate is that important. This is our guy. They think loyalty matters more than, you know, decency. I mean, that's the Democrat Party of today. But like you said, this guy's had that tattoo for 18 years. The mental gymnastics you have to do to be able to spin why you still support that person, because behind the scenes, you know, that's your best shot at winning the seat, is wild. But that's what they do. Yeah. And they continue to do it.
You know, it's a cult. It really is. And the right, the MAGA group, has an element of this to a certain degree, but it's a minority on the right. Some prominent individuals will defend Trump literally no matter what he does, even when he does bad things or makes mistakes. The left it's the dominant. I was talking to a guy, maybe you'll end up hearing about this, but there's a guy that I know. He's an older guy, he's a boomer, and he was complaining to me that my Timcast signed the press corps press agreement. And his question was, if every other news organization refused to do it, it's wrong for you to do it. And he's entitled to his opinion, but his opinion is based on what the people do, not on what is true. And this is what I see largely of the Democrats. They don't care about policy, don't care what is true. They care what their group think is. And if the group says, we are taking an action, don't you dare do otherwise you're our enemy. That's all they're voting on. So if a progressive guy's got a literal Nazi tattoo and seems to be a Nazi, they're like, doesn't matter. Groupthink says it's okay. We support him. That's what we are trying to defeat. Now, the challenge for you, Cliff, and for everybody else who's voting is trying to convince moral moderates and conservatives to vote based on the merits. It's very difficult. For liberals, it's just do as we say because we're the majority. They say yes.
And Tim, you're hitting on something that most people don't understand, which is when they changed all the rules during COVID to have these longer elections. And I'm not even saying they did this intentionally. They probably did.
Yeah.
But what happens is they made it more about collecting ballots and just getting people to play on their team because you have more time to do that. You have less time to individually target one day where you can message and figure out how do you talk to people about issues, get them to care. When you have these long election seasons, it really helps those that do have the group think because they don't even want you to spend time. It's just vote for our party, vote for our party. And we as Republicans are finally doing the same thing. I mean, obviously we're talking about issues, but it benefits them because they're just rack up as much as you can. They don't even want you to look at the name of the candidate. Just vote for the party. Republicans want to talk about the issues. It's a much tougher sell. Doesn't mean we shouldn't do the work, but we got to grind to get those votes because the Dems just they get in line at the trough, man, and they just go vote.
You've got this Prop 50 in California now where they want to basically eliminate, all the remaining Republican seats in the state. And I think they'll be able to do it because this is what happens when you create a uniparty state, a single party controlled state. Over a long enough period of time, moderate to conservative individuals flee the area, be it a city, state, county, or otherwise, making it easier and easier for one party to win every election. And then they entrench what remains of their politics. They're going to turn California into a universally Democrat uniparty state. And then they're going to try and manipulate federal elections to a great degree. What are we seeing with the Republican response? I mean, you think the Voting Rights Act, there's some speculation that the Voting Rights Act is effectively overturned by the Supreme Court. Republicans could gain 20 seats. Democrats could lose 20 seats, creating a permanent Republican majority in the federal government.
I'm a believer in fighting. Right. I think the narrative the left tries to say is that, for years the left has been fair and now all of a sudden the right's being aggressive. It's completely bonkers. The left has used the rules to benefit them when it comes to gerrymandering for decades. And Republicans have always been afraid of being called racist. We're afraid of being called misogynistic. If we do this, come on, guys, fight with the rules you can fight with. And a lot of this is not even at the federal level. Yes, they've just done that with the Voting Rights Act, but a lot of this governors could take action today. Legislatures could take action today. You just saw it in North Carolina. They're pushing with the state legislature to change it. But we need to be on offense in every state. That doesn't mean we're doing anything illegal. But the whole narrative that the left follows the rules and now we're going to try to steal seats, they have been following the rules and gerrymandering to benefit them for decades. It's time we fight back too. Follow the rules, gerrymander how you need to. Every seat's having the same amount of population. But do what they do to create the maps instead of being afraid of being called some sort of name and
fight to win.
We should have these seats.
Fight to win. You know what I love about this? Newsom said that Trump is rigging the election. And my response is, how is it that by simply watching polling locations, the outcome of the election changes? It's almost as if what they're arguing is, if you watch us, we won't be able to cheat, so you're rigging the election. That's
they try to scare you by thinking that this is like a reference to Jim Crow laws where people would stand at the polls to intimidate people. It's like, no, listen, they're literally saying they want to watch it. But look, some of the activists and donors on the left, they love that garbage from Newsom, right? Yep. See, Trump's trying to intimidate. That's what this is all about. The DOJ has done this for decades, sending people in. They're just going to keep using talking points when it fits their narrative.
I got to be honest, seeing the response to Charlie Kirk's assassination, seeing Jay Jones's inner thoughts and desires about murdering children, I'm pretty sure if you went to Democrats, this is the scary thing. Let's go back in time. I'll put it like this. There were accusations that people who were vote counting were cheating for the Democrats. And the left argues there's no conspiracy, that's crazy. And my response is there doesn't need to be a conspiracy. Democrats just know what to do and they're willing to do it. So some random woman who hates Republicans, she's in a polling location counting ballots, and she goes, I'm going to disqualify this Trump vote because this is smudged. I think it says Biden, but he means Biden. It's good. And as long as that bias exists among Democrats and not among Republicans, Democrats are going to favor themselves in every election. It's called a standalone complex where all of these people take an action in a singular direction without being prompted to do so. I think that's a problem we face. If you go to Democrats and say, I bet if you poll Democrats, should the Democrats cheat to win elections, to stop Republicans from getting power, I bet you'd get at least a third to say yes, and the next third would think yes but say no because they'd be embarrassed.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. And it reminds me of when we poll people on the left and say, is political violence sometimes justified? And the fact that even, more than 0% of people say that is wackadoo. But yeah, I think you're right. I never heard it breaking down like that. And I think you're right, where it's like you have enough of these people radicalized and thinking that for the betterment of the democracy, as they would call it, we must do this. We must cheat to win. It doesn't mean there's some, Wizard of Oz pulling the strings. It's just they have the opportunity there. And look, we see this in county after county. This is why I believe we need the most extremely secure elections possible, the most transparent, because, you're going to have bad actors, right? You're going to have individuals doing this. And there's not really a solution other than open the books, figure out systems that people can trust. And at the end of the day, you want your citizens to trust the results of the election. And everything Trump's doing is enhancing transparency, period.
It's going to be tough. So just final thoughts. What do you think is going to happen in Jersey? And where can everybody find you?
Yeah, Jersey, I think it's going to be a nail biter. We need everyone to get out and vote for Jack Ciattarelli. If folks want to sponsor a ballot chaser, njchase.com. I'm on X at Maloney. Tim, as always, appreciate letting me get the word out here, and appreciate the show and the audience.
Well, right on, man. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you soon.
Got it.
Take care. That, of course, is Cliff Maloney doing the work that needs to be done in New Jersey. My friends, let me just say this as we wrap things up. You got to get out and vote. You just absolutely have to do it. I know it's an uphill battle. It can be demoralizing at times. Sometimes it feels like, what's even the point? Because we need the avalanche. The Democrats have the avalanche every single day. The grains of sand that just move, like we were talking about. 1,000 people. No one needs to tell these Democrats what to do. They're willing to break the law to win. Republicans are not, and you shouldn't. It just means that we need our own avalanche. You may be but a single snowflake in that avalanche, but without you, there isn't one. So make sure, if you're in California, if you're in Virginia, if you're in Maine, if you're in New Jersey, you go and vote. You bring 3 of your friends. You tell your friends to go vote. Everybody go vote. I believe we've got, gearing up, Devori Darkins, who is going live right now. Let's get that raid for you guys. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. DC Comedy Loft special event, November 8th. Emily Saves America, Myron Gaines, Alex Stein, Brian Shapiro, liberal guy. It's going to be a great debate on modern dating. And I don't think it's going to go the way you think it will. I think it's going to get very, very interesting. So again, thank you all so much for hanging out. We're back tonight, 8 p.m. for Timcast IRL, and we will see you all then.